Hello and welcome to Mount Vernon Roundup. I'm your host, Brian Harrod, and today we're continuing a conversation with Shawyn Patterson Howard, who's running for mayor in the city of Mount Vernon, New York. And today I want to talk about public safety.
Okay.
And it's a hot button issue in Mount Vernon on some levels. There's been a year's or more worth of just headlines about issues with the upper management of the police department.
Mm-hmm.
There's been multiple rallies of families, that have
unsolved murders. Yes.
Thank you. It's heartbreaking. You see people on TV crying of their relatives, just going to a nursing home, and it's a very bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm new to Mount Vernon, but to be quite honest, I have people tell me you don't want to go this part of town at a certain time during a 24-hour period. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's unfounded, but also maybe it's true. So what are your views on, public safety in Mount Vernon?
Well, clearly we have incredible police officers
Mm-hmm.
in Mount Vernon. They are dedicated,
Mm-hmm.
they're trained, and they are committed to making Mount Vernon safe.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest problems that we've had in Mount Vernon over the past few decades is mayoral interference in public safety in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
We've had rotating commissioners,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not because everyone was incompetent. It's oftentimes because a lot of decisions that are made on a political basis, and whether or not the commissioner is doing everything the mayor wants to do. The mayor is not always an expert in public safety. So
Mm-hmm.
when you hire someone who's competent, you have to allow them to do the job. And so one of the things that we've seen in Mount Vernon in the past few years is that you have someone who has no history in criminal justice,
Mm-hmm.
who is the second person in charge in the police department.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been more politics. Joe Spezio doesn't have a background in criminal
Mm-hmm.
justice, yet he is the person oftentimes dictating criminal justice and policy decisions in the city of Mount Vernon. A lot of things going on. And so, one of the biggest issues that we have had in Mount Vernon are the unsolved murders.
Mm-hmm.
Mount Vernon on and off has funded and defunded their criminal investigations units.
There might not be enough detectives for these murders?
Not always enough detectives. Mm-hmm. People are not always as well trained as they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have great leadership over the department.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's also been some bias. If you have someone who was killed in Mount Vernon who might have a reputation as a drug dealer or a quote-unquote bad person,
Mm-hmm.
those investigations are not necessarily handled
in
the same way. They're not pursued in the same way that someone who is an innocent, quote-unquote innocent victim of crimes case is pursued. And if you don't collect information within the first 48, 72 hours, the trail starts to go cold. And so when you have leadership that doesn't necessarily value every life that is lost equally, then the investigations are handled differently. It's kind of hard to come back in an investigation 10 years after someone's died if you didn't collect information and do interviews and do your due diligence on the street when the crime occurred. Another thing is you have to have people in the department, not only just your street level cops, but those in leadership that the community trusts. Mm-hmm. And so we need to have...
people might not be so forthcoming with the information.
They're not necessarily forthcoming. And so when people hear things about community policing, they just think it's about being nice and having cops walk around and shake hands and say hello to people in the community. But community policing is really also an investigative tool, because if you have a good relationship with Miss Jones or Mr. Johnny in the neighborhood, or the young people, the teenagers, people in their middle age, whatever, all ages, then you're going to be able to get information. Here in Yonkers, really, when I spoke to Commissioner Gardner, he said he evaluates his captains and his lieutenants and even his sergeants by the number of community residents' phone numbers that they have, and how many people have their phone numbers. So they have relationships, and when you develop relationships with people, you're going to get information about what's happening. They're going to reach out, they're going to call you, they're going to see you as being partners. People always talk about snitches. Look, people talk to the police about what goes on in the community more often than they don't. But they'll only talk to people they trust. So you have to show yourself trustworthy, and you have to make sure that you have people who are building those critical relationships in the community. That's important. In Mount Vernon, look, I've worked with the police department over the years, and like I said, we have some incredible officers. They're hardworking, and they want to do better in Mount Vernon. They want to do the best for Mount Vernon, but we have to make sure that we get them training. We have to make sure that they have the proper equipment and tools that they need to do their job, and even down to basic police cars. We haven't invested a lot
I heard that
police
they were,
cars and
it's a
vehicles.
very old fleet. It's a
very old fleet. They have, brought some recently, but we've spent about $80,000 on a truck for our chief of police.
Oh, really?
When you could have really turned around and brought maybe 3 cars.
It's
for
nice
the
to have
police
those squad
department.
cars, yeah.
It's much better to invest. So as we invest, we have to invest smart. We have to have smart investment in what we choose to purchase, especially if our funding is limited.
Despite the possibility that not enough information was collected on some of these murders, and perhaps there's been so many changes in leadership, like that type of thing, would it be wise to have, like, for these families, like some kind of cold case office, or maybe they have this already, but just that maybe they would check in with these families every 3 months. This is what's been done.
I mean, that's
if there is anything that can be done at this point.
Yes, I mean, that's what a lot of the families are looking for.
Oh.
They say, we just want to know who we can call, who can give us an answer, who can give us an update, and not give us the runaround. A lot of families feel discarded and feeling like
I'm calling the front desk.
you're calling and they're
how can I help
transferring you
ma'am?
around.
Yeah.
Oh, the detective that was on the case is no longer here. They've transferred out of the department. The case has kind of been dropped, and you have to keep a lot of pressure on just to get updates. You want to make sure that outside people are not interfering in police investigations. And that's really a lot of the frustrations.
I guess for some vacant positions there, you would just be kind of looking for a search for the right person to lead the department?
Well, it's really a lot of reorganizing. I mean, we have over 200 officers. We have to
really? I didn't know
take
it's that
some
big, yes.
people off of desk duty and inside duty and assign more people to the street.
I
We
see.
want to make sure that the 7 sectors that we're covering are properly staffed. We want to make sure that we are participating in community policing practices and developing relationships with the neighbors, with the businesses, with the churches, because that helps you get information. And really, most importantly, we want to make sure that we're supporting our police department and that we're communicating again with the families
I hear
who
you.
don't know what's happening with their cases.
Well, I have to bring this segment to a close.
Absolutely.
But if you'd like to speak to anything I should have addressed in this interview to the audience, please go right ahead.
Well, I definitely want to say thank you to the Mount Vernon Police Department. I've had an opportunity to work with so many of the officers over the years, and they're incredible and they're committed. But we want to make sure that we're supporting our officers with training, with proper equipment, and that we're providing them with good leadership. Good leadership is the key to strengthening the Mount Vernon Police Department and bringing them to a world-class organization. The Mount Vernon Police Department was recently reaccredited, but we don't want to meet minimum standards. We want to establish best practices and be looked at as a model police department in the region, not just in the region, but the state. And so as mayor, that's something I'm looking to do, is really focus on public safety and ensure that we have a safe community, not just for our residents, but so that we can build our economy, we can create jobs, and that we can transform the landscape of our community.
All right, thank you for being on the show, Ms. Patterson.
Thank you so much.
It was very informative. I learned a few things about the police department, and I thank you for watching Mount Vernon Roundup, the public access program for you, the residents of Mount Vernon.